Hello, I'm Martin Earwicker. I'm the Chair of Berkshire Healthcare. I'd like to welcome you all to our annual general meeting for 2023. We've got presentations from our lead governor, from our Chief Executive and Director of Finance, an opportunity for you to ask questions, and then two service presentations on Let's Connect Wellbeing Network and Building Language in Berkshire, and you'll have a chance also to ask questions there. So with no more ado, I'll invite Brian Wilson, our lead governor, to give a presentation on the work of our governors in the last year.
This graphic here shows in presentation terms where the membership sits in relation to the Council of Governors and vice versa. We have public membership of around 7,700 and 5,000 staff members making up the membership of the Trust. You can see there that we have 32 governors in 4 different categories. Of the public governors, 18 are elected by the membership and 3 are from each of the political boroughs, the borough councils areas of the county of Berkshire. We'll show you the names and breakdown of that in present terms. Membership for staff is automatic with an opt-out if they require. Public membership is free and can be undertaken through the website. Next slide, please. These are the public governors. You can see myself there on the top left as for the constituency of Bracknell. A couple of things to note. Governors can serve for 3 3-year terms, and after that they have to leave the Council of Governors. In this makeup here, we have a number of very new governors and nearly new governors because a number of our experienced governors have had to retire. I'm grateful that the new governors are increasingly active as governors in support of the work of the Trust, and I'm told by the longer serving governors that this is the first time in a number of years where we've had a full Council of Governors with every seat occupied. Next slide, please. Clinical governors, we have Anne and Tina. We welcome Anne as a new governor, and for non-clinical governors we have Alan and Guy, and Alan is a new governor as of this summer along with Anne. Again, my thanks to the new governors and existing staff governors for their active contribution along with the rest of the Council of Governors. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, we have 6 borough councils within the county of Berkshire, and each one of these councils nominates and approves a councillor from the elected body to sit on the Council of Governors with us. We had an interesting experience on May the 4th this year, where out of our 6 councils, 5 of them changed political hands, and therefore we worked closely with these 5 councils to have 5 further appointed governors. Councillor Deborah Edwards from Reading is our long-serving appointed governor, and my thanks to Deborah for working with the 5 new governors from the other councils to encourage them and to explain to them how the work of the appointed governor works. Next slide, please. This slide gives you some information about the scope of the work that the council undertakes. For example, the formal council meetings take place 4 times a year. They are open to the public and are recorded. We conduct formal business like the appointments within the council and for the non-executive directors, and receiving reports from the Trust. And these reports can be not just from board level, but from many of the service areas that conduct the work of the Trust in the front line. On top of that, we have informal council meetings, and these also take place 4 times a year, where we meet with the executives and the non-executive directors. And as part of the role of governors, it's our role to gain assurance that the performance of the Trust in all its aspects is as it should be. We have an opportunity to input into the Trust strategy, to get further updates from the services, and to pose searching and challenging questions where we feel we should to the board itself, and that again is a key part of the role of the governor. Our focus areas are very much in patient safety, service quality improvement. Berkshire Healthcare is CQC rated as outstanding, but there is always room for improvement, and part of the role of the governor again here is to aid and abet that process. And of course we look into the financial performance as well. We can't visit all the service areas ourselves across the whole of the county of Berkshire, so it is important when we get updates from services that this complements the work of the governors out in the front line with service units. Next slide, please. In addition to our standard work, you see here an illustration of the sort of other activities that the Council of Governors and individual governors do get up to. I'm not going to read out the list, I'll just pick some examples. Strategic updates on the integrated care systems. There is a new Health Act in place. The clinical commissioning groups have now been gone for about a year, so there is a new regime under which we operate. Further down, where we have how our integrated care system is working in Berkshire, a point to note here is because of the geography of Berkshire, we relate to 2 ICSs, not just the one. We have Frimley Health in the east and Buckinghamshire, Oxfordshire, Berkshire West in the west. This provides us with some interesting challenges, but a lot of the work the Trust does with governor support is to make sure that there is a smooth integration between the service that patients get across the whole of the county. This morning in a Council of Governors meeting, we had the latest update on carers strategy update. And it's not just carers, this covers patients, families and their carers, and is a key piece of work to make sure that the service we provide to patients is the best it can possibly be. Next slide, please. A small subcommittee on the Council of Governors is the Appointments and Remuneration Committee. And here's an illustration of some of the things that this subcommittee does. We extend the terms of office. Here we did it for 2 of our non-executive directors. And the reason we do that is that with continuity and overlap with new incoming non-executive directors, we have a strength of continuity and continuance of the work of the non-executive directors. Our latest recruitment to the NED level is Rebecca Burford, commercial lawyer from Guildford, and already a strongly performing new addition to the non-executive team. Lastly, we also contribute to the performance review, the performance appraisal of our chair, Martin Earwicker, and approve the remuneration each year. Next slide, please. There are 3 governor working groups that operate in parallel to what we've seen so far. These are the 3. The Quality Assurance Group, amongst other things, looks at the same large body of data that the board does on complaints, compliments and patient experience. This is also looked at by the Council of Governors, but in more depth in this particular Governor subcommittee. Membership and Engagement Group, we look here in particular across a range of member characteristics and look at strategies for improving the participation of underrepresented areas in the membership community. Living Life to the Full group is more of an outreach to partner and associated organisations where we draw presentations in from outside bodies, independent ones, associate and partner organisations, so that we can look at the wider service provision after patient discharge from the Trust and how people are looked after by organisations and bodies outside of the Trust. Next slide, please. Martin, is this an area that you conduct at this point in the meeting?
Thank you, Brian. I'm happy to do this. This is a change to the Trust constitution. where we've relaxed some of the rules relating to exclusion of members from the trust. The wording has been put on the public website for about a month. It was included in the members' newsletter, and the Council of Governors recommends it. So what I'm proposing is, unless someone who's watching publicly objects, that we adopt this change to the Constitution. So just a minute or two, we'll just wait in case anyone's got a particular issue on the Q&A. If not, we'll take it that it's been approved. Okay, we'll take that as being approved then. Brian, have you finished your presentation?
Just one more. Could we jump to the last slide, please? For those watching from members of the public outside, Berkshire Healthcare, like the whole of the NHS, continues to face challenging times, especially funding and workforce issues. Further down there, you can see the mechanism by which you can get involved with the trust, become a member if you're not already a member, and how to contact your constituency governor or the governors in general. So we would like to hear from you. Please do engage with us. We would like to with you. Last slide, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Brian. We'll have an opportunity for questions after the review of the year. So perhaps I'll now invite the Chief Executive, Julian Emms, and the Chief Financial Officer, Paul Gray, to talk to the review of the year. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Brian. Thanks very much, Martin. For those who've attended before, including sort of Council of Governors members, know that this is a very short and condensed view of the year. I've to pick out some highlights. If you want to know more about the work of the Trust, the published annual report, which is publicly available, and the Trust Quality Accounts is the best place to go. And so what I'm doing in just 10 minutes or so with Paul is summarising, obviously, a busy year. That's a financial year, so April 2022 to March 2023, about what we've done, our key activities, achievements, some of our challenges, and a little bit of a tempter about what we might be working on over the coming years. So if we could just move to my first slide, please. And this is really for the benefit of people perhaps less familiar with the landscape in Berkshire, because there are a number of NHS organisations. Just to say, Berkshire Healthcare, NHS Foundation Trust, we are quite unique in that we provide both physical healthcare services and mental health services, about 50-50, one of the largest employers. And I guess unlike acute hospitals or district general hospitals, we are really based in the communities that we serve. So we operate out of 98 sites, and we do around 1 million interventions in people's homes, as well as obviously having hospitals as well. And as Brian very helpfully pointed out, in terms of the way the NHS is organised, in terms of the planning footprint, the cooperation footprint, the partnership footprint, the language used is integrated care systems. And Brian's already pointed out we're in 2 across Berkshire. Next slide, please. During that last year that went past, we wanted to really take account of the changing landscape in which the NHS, in fact, all of us are operating in, sort of post-COVID pandemic, recognising some of the challenges that we've got, but also thinking about what the world of tomorrow needs in terms of healthcare provision. And so we refreshed with sort of patients, public, members of staff, our mission and vision. And our mission is very straightforward. It's to maximise independence and quality of life. I think that's really important as an outlook and as a philosophy. We have such a range of services, but if you take any of them, at the heart of that will be this desire and expertise to maximise independence and quality of life. A child with significant disabilities, somebody at the end of life, it's still possible to maximise independence and quality of life. Of course, it's also possible to minimise both as well. And so it's a real call to arms to make sure that we don't do any of those things. And it is, given the increasing demand on health and social care, I think it is a mantra that is going to be increasingly important. The vision has been refreshed, and I think we were really clear that we wanted to focus on, firstly, on patients and staff rather than organisational vision. I think it is both meaningful and memorable. Great place to get care, a great place to give care. Next slide, please. Mission and vision mean nothing, if the values and the context of the organisation is wonky. And we have retained our core values, caring for and about you as our top priority, committed to providing good quality, safe services, and working together to develop innovative solutions, working together with patients, service users, carers, members of the public, but of course working together with other organisations and in our own organisation across teams, etc. Caring, committed, together. Next slide, please. I just want to mark some significant changes. As an organisation, we are blessed by stability of senior leadership and governor oversight, but we did have some changes this year, which I do want to mark. So David Townsend, our long-standing Chief Operating Officer, retired. David Buckle, a non-exec director, GP background and clinician, stepped down after 7 years as a non-exec director, and Paul, who was Brian's predecessor, had done 9 years as a governor and many years in that lead role and made a significant contribution. And they've been succeeded by Tamina, Sally and Brian, who we will welcome to their respective roles on Berkshire Healthcare. Next slide, please. As I said, if you read the annual report or the quality account, you will see hundreds of services, literally hundreds of service developments and initiatives. I have had to choose 2 for the sake of time. I'm very happy to be challenged on that, but in a sense, it's just a matter of pragmatism. But I've chosen 2 because I think they're quite significant. They're both Berkshire-wide, and I both think they point to the world of tomorrow again. The first is virtual wards. Effectively, I think about this as hospital at home. And over the last couple of years, we've started to provide physical healthcare in environments, in people's home environments that are equivalent to inpatient care in a physical health hospital. We've done that successfully with our community geriatrician leading and developing expertise in multidisciplinary teams. And we've been able to evidence that people who would have gone into hospital or people who come into hospital, we've been able to discharge them to their hospital, home or virtual ward much quicker. With the demands on healthcare ever increasing, with buildings looking increasingly ageing across the public sector, not just in health, but in schools, we've seen that recently, haven't we? I think increasing the amount of care that can be delivered safely, effectively in people's homes is definitely the way forward. And patients agree with us. The surveys and response so far has been extremely positive. The second initiative is our mental health integrated community services, a bit of a mouthful, but effectively these are teams of expert mental health practitioners, but co-located and based in primary care and with expertise to deal with severe mental illness where the level of risk is not so great. And so it really bridges the gap between some of our very specialist mental health services and the GP. So it provides expertise, capacity, and stops hopefully people bouncing around. We first developed these a few years ago in East Berkshire because we were a fast track site as a pilot, if you like, but that has now developed across the whole of Berkshire. And at this moment in time, I guess we're learning from the experience, tweaking it and developing it to make sure that we're getting the best results possible. And also thinking about how they fit into the wider mental health system, which is the reference on the slide to one team, where we're doing a piece of work which we will talk about this time next year about how all our specialist teams can better fit together to provide a more coherent offer for those people using our services. Next slide, please. I talked about a great place to get care and a great place to give care. And one of the things that we know is that it can't be a great place if you've got discrimination in your services or within your organisation. And over the last few years, we've focused on anti-discriminatory practice in a variety of areas, and we have made some headway, but there are some areas that we have not made as much progress. a bit like the rest of the NHS and society itself, really. And we have made a very strong commitment in the last year to become an anti-racist organisation, to address racism actively and proactively. So it's not enough to say, look, you know, as individuals, as an organisation, we're non-racist. This is about a call to action and to do something about racism. And this can manifest itself in a variety of ways. So we still have a good number of our staff who are subject to, unfortunately, quite regular racial abuse day to day, and some of our systems and processes do not seem to be producing fair outcomes. They include waiting lists and times, as well as recruitment and retention. And just as a flavour of the work that we've got, because as I say, this is action, not just about putting statements out there, although we do have an anti-racist statement published on our website. We've got 5 key work streams around recruitment and retention, progression and conditions, our policy and practice, education and engagement. So that includes education for governors, board members, but also all our colleagues, how we deal with incidents and support and empower those individuals who may be subject to racism, and looking at patient access, experience and outcomes. So again, looking at our waiting lists and making sure that they're fair. Only when we can address those issues can we start to think we've started to achieve that vision around great place to get care, great place to give care. Next slide, please. There's been a lot recently, partly because of the grotesque crimes of Lucy Letby, around the culture of the NHS. What I would say is there are over 220 separate NHS providers, and there are large differences between those providers. We have been working on our culture for a good number of years, particularly an open, transparent, safe culture, this freedom to speak up, where people are able to speak up, but also, more importantly, that when people do speak up, they're listened to and action is taken. And so last year, like no other, we continue to put work into this, encourage people, support people, make sure the right conditions are there, our leaders are trained and welcomed and curious, so that any speaking up does get the right response. And in the table is the NHS staff survey, which all our organisations are required to complete. You can start to see some of the improvements that we've made in terms of some of the key questions about asking people feeling safe to raise concerns and feeling confident the organisation would do something about it. What I want to say, and I need to say, is there is zero complacency about those scores, because clearly, while they're improving, there are still people who do not feel as confident. And as a point made on the next slide, please, if we can just go a little bit further. So again, it helps to put this in some kind of context. You can see against those questions we're 12th best out of 225, and similar organisations, community mental health 3rd best, and the region 3rd best, and best in our ICS. So that's good in terms of, you know, significant difference and significant improvement, but no room for complacency, continuing to embed this work, continuing to make sure it's part of every leader and manager's capability set, continuing to report to board around this, and continuing to find new ways of improving. And of course, there's a flip side to this. I've focused on safety and quality and concerns, but when people feel free to speak about those things, they also speak up about other things. They start to email you about innovations, ideas, ways of improving things. So generally a culture where people are able to speak up, it has a multitude of benefits. Final slide is about our staff, 5,000 of them who do an incredible job. Probably I can't think, and most people can't think, about a tougher few years to have worked in the NHS. We've had COVID, we've had industrial action, we've had the catch up and the demand for healthcare services. So, you know, a lot of pressures coming from a variety of places. And I'm pleased to say that on the staff survey, again, last year we came top all staff engagement in the country across all organisations. Staff engagement is a fundamental measure of how motivated people are in their work, how much they would recommend it as a place to work or to be treated, and how much freedom, agency they have to make a difference in the workplace. It's very important because it's directly related to the quality of patient care, which is ultimately what we're here to deliver. I shan't go through all of those slides, but you can see nationally we topped in 2 particular areas, and we were above average in every other one of them. Again, no room for complacency. The approach of the board now is, although at a macro level the organisation is high achieving, it allows us to take the time to be curious, to understand those areas that are not doing so well. So it might be a team or area or a particular group of staff, so we can home in on that. And the board are as ambitious for us to improve on those areas as they were 10 years ago for us to improve overall. So whilst we should celebrate our colleagues and celebrate that success, there is never any room for complacency. I hope you pick that up and detect that from what I've just said. I'm now going to hand over to Paul, who's briefly going to talk through just the high-level finances for the year in a comprehensible and understandable way that we should all be able to get our heads around. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Julian. If I could get my first slide, please. On the next slide, please. Thank you very much. Okay, so looking back at 22-23, we set a financial plan in a post-COVID environment, and what I mean by that is that the organisation moved back to financial regimes closer to what we were operating under COVID, with our financial position being less reliant on central government COVID funding. We also entered the year with high levels of patient demand, increasing pressures on our services, but also an extremely challenging economic climate with inflation rising to levels that we'd not seen for decades. So taking all of these factors into account, the board agreed and we set a planned deficit for the year of 1 million. Within that plan, we assumed that we would need to deliver 10 million of efficiencies, and we also made sure that we continue to invest the cash reserves that we have, and we agreed an £11 million capital expenditure programme. The result of the capital programme, the result of our deficit, meant that we were planning for the year to see a reduction in our cash holdings of around 7.2 million. If I can get the next slide, please. So in terms of our actual financial performance, overall, the Trust had a really successful financial year. Despite planning for a deficit, we delivered a break-even position, which is £1 million better than we originally planned. If you note from the table, you'll see that the organisation saw a marked increase in income during the year, some 29 million, and this is the result of several things. So first being national price inflation funding that we received through our NHS and other contracts. Additionally, we received specific funding for our services through the Mental Health Investment Standard, which is a recognised higher than inflation level of funding that's passed through to mental health services to recognise levels of historic investment in those services. We also benefited from service development funding, which was again specific NHS funding for mental health and community services for specific initiatives and programmes of work. And finally, within that value, there was 9 million of income that we received at the end of the financial year as part of the final Agenda for Change pay settlement negotiated with the government. So offsetting that increase in income, you'll see that our costs rose by 31 million, and predominantly we saw these increases reflected in our staffing costs. So two key drivers behind those increases. One being the aforementioned nationally agreed pay awards, which were passed through and settled. The second is that we saw an increase in our workforce in line with the agreed investments, and effectively saw a workforce increase of around 200 full-time equivalents over the course of last financial year. From an efficiency perspective, we did fall short of our plans, but we still managed to deliver 5.2 million of efficiencies. So we saw our costs falling in terms of our short-term mental health placements longer term learning development placements, so that's usage and price. And also following the pandemic, we have more staff working from home, which means we're taking a really critical view in terms of our estate's utilisation, and we managed to achieve some efficiencies and financial benefit from the cost of our properties and from some technical VAT benefit from how we account for those properties. In terms of capital investment, really important that we continue to invest our reserves, and we continue to do that this year. So in terms of our estates, we invested 4.5 million, some key projects that we delivered on in the financial year. So we completed our move out of our old HQ in Bracknell, Fitzwilliam House, and into London House, which is our new HQ and collaborative space. We also expanded into some new facilities in Newbury, a building called Adlam Villas, which is being utilised heavily by our physiotherapy and MSK service. And we've moved into replacement new accommodation in somewhere called Foundation House in Windsor, which again is accommodating expansion in local physiotherapy services. As we operate across the county, we're heavily reliant on our IT infrastructure to keep us connected, and we continue to invest in this area as well. So 5.1 million invested in the year, and that's replacement of existing kit for those new starters and improvements in our infrastructure, cybersecurity and strategic IT investments. Our cash position held, and we finished the year with 55.2 million in the bank. And importantly for us, we received an unqualified audit opinion from EY, our external auditors. If I could get the next slide, please. Moving into 23-24, I think everyone will be aware the economic and operational climate remains extremely challenging for the NHS. We've set ourselves a financial plan for the year of a 1.2 million surplus. That includes 14 million of efficiencies which we need to deliver, so a slightly higher efficiency ask on the organisation this financial year. Given our level of cash reserves, we will continue to invest in improvements in the estate and IT infrastructure, and we have a plan this year to invest 12.5 million. And again, the results of the I&E plan and that level of capital investment mean that we do expect to see a decrease in cash by about 8.6 million this year. Happy to leave it there and take any questions, Martin.
Thank you. Okay, I think what we'll do now is that if there are any questions, I can't see any on the chat, but if there are any, just a minute or two, we'll take them. If not, we'll move on. So I think if there are no questions, but please do put them up during the rest of the meeting if you wish. We'll move straight on to the service presentations. And I welcome Sally Gom and Iona Stavraki on the Let's Connect Wellbeing Network.
Hello, can you hear me clearly? Yeah. Yeah, hello. Just to outline how we're going to present today, we're going to start with a PowerPoint presentation, and then because most things we do are co-produced, we're here with a membership panel. The members are the people that use our service, and Ioana is going to introduce that bit when we come to it. So yeah, if we could have the next slide, please. Thanks. So a brief overview of what we do. We're a fairly new service. We started in development phase in May 22 and operationally in September, rolling out across at the time the west of Berkshire, but we're about to roll out across the whole of Berkshire. So we'll be looking at what we offer and who can join and our aims, and we'll be giving chance for questions at the end. So yeah, if you could move on. Next slide, please. Yeah, so we're quite different and quite innovative. Let's Connect Wellbeing Network's a social network, and we support the well-being of a whole population over the age of 18, and that's by connecting, for people to be able to connect with each other and with organisations and services and with the many opportunities of our community. Those who join the network will bring their own strengths as well as gaining from the support of others, and that's based on their own personal choices, whether to join, whether to come, and how to be when they're here. But members who come have something to gain and something to contribute, and if you were to see that in an operation, it's very mutual, it's very supportive, and it's certainly the work there is not really just being done by staff, it's certainly by members as well. Next slide, please. So what we offer, it's fairly organic, but the clear things that we offer is we have Let's Connect meetings on a regular basis, and these meetings are to support members to build a social network or to simply have contact with some others, and time is given mutually from the members and the staff to all participants at each of those meetings, and they are across, at the moment, Reading, Wokingham and Newbury, but we'll be starting very soon, spreading across the east as well. We also can offer up to about 6 individual meetings to support people to reflect on what they'd like to do or connect with in their life, or to consider what would help. These sessions provide also a more private space, because as you can imagine, the Let's Connect meetings, we get up to 20 people. It's buzzy, it's busy, it's wonderful. We also have small meetings, but they're not private. So these sessions provide a more private space and may simply be used for some for personal conversations. Community connection, we can connect members to groups and organisations in their local community or beyond that, and can support them to add to their choices that they may be making for their well-being. Next slide, please. So who can join? As I said, anybody over the age of 18 who lives in the Berkshire locality. Let's Connect can benefit those who feel that their well-being would develop from more social contact and better information about the rich opportunities in the community. And this group of people may well be any citizen, may or may not have had connections with mental health services and support from that in the past, but many people will not have. Another group is people who have had support for their mental health in the past, but now want to make more choices and broaden out about how to support their own health and well-being. And the third group would be people who are currently receiving support from mental health services, but want to make choices about other ways to support themselves through social contact, and also, to take those steps and step across maybe the difficult thresholds of connecting with people again. Yeah, next slide, please. Thanks. So the key aims are, the key one would be to break or reduce social isolation. So providing a social network with the support and building relationships and friendships, and very, very consciously as well, to build the confidence that goes with that and to help with well-being. To support people to connect both together and with their community opportunities. And we can also, for many people who would like to make some onward referrals, we can support that as well. And that can be within Berkshire Healthcare, or it can actually be with the voluntary sector and local groups. And we have very strong relationships with both. And I'll talk a bit more about that in terms of integrated work further on. And obviously, if there's an urgent onward referral, we would take that up and either deal with people who may, also other teams that may be involved, or simply deal with them ourselves and feedback it into all other connections. Yeah, next slide, please. Okay, so I think we're very pleased to say that we feel we have a big role in prevention, and that's prevention from either initial entry into services or for reducing or preventing readmissions. and we it's very hard to measure prevention, but we are working on something that will clearly demonstrate that as we develop as well and time goes on. We feel we can provide a timely, responsive offer to people who do not meet the threshold for Berkshire services. So we are normally in touch with people within a few days, and people can normally attend in person one of the services that we offer within a week, 2 weeks at most, I would say. So that prompt response, I think, can be a real relief to people who may think that they have to wait for quite a long time. We're a response to the community mental health framework, and one of the clear mantras that comes from that is that there's no cliff edge. So we see ourselves as a bridge between BHFT, the voluntary sector, and all other community provision, thereby developing integrated and joined up working. So supporting staff teams as well to discharge with confidence. So onward support offered to patients from Berkshire and from BHFT, where staff teams can also feel that people that they've worked with for a long time, cared about, supported, are actually going further out into the community with us supporting that work as well. Okay, next slide, please. Thanks. So the bridge that I refer to feels very important to us because it is the work that's joining up and integrating across BHFT and out into the community. And I guess from one end of that bridge, we would see, we would regard it as maybe the from patient to citizen. So Let's Connect would be discussed with people on admission. So we would be thinking about discharge at the point of admission, or very soon after that when it's appropriate, or entry into community services, and that follows on through to discharge or transitions for many people, offering continuity, connection, confidence and structure. And for, I guess, people entering onto that bridge from the other end, from the community ed, and it would be from disconnected citizen to connected citizen, so people who've recognised that their well-being will benefit from the connections that we offer. And there are multiple reasons for that isolation, but this, Let's Connect offers a supported and empathetic step to build connections and confidence. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I'm now going to hand over to Ioana Stavraki, who will introduce our panel today, and all of this has been co-produced with this panel. So I'm handing over now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sally, and a big hello from me today. Let's Connect, as we said, is a non-clinical service that is deeply rooted in strong asset-based community development and in co-production. So in line with that, I have the pleasure to be joined today by some of our Let's Connect members to form this presentation panel. This is split between two screens. So on my left-hand side, we have Carol. On my right-hand side, we have Vitalia, and then on the other screen, on the left-hand side, we will have Martin, and on the right, we will have Kevin. Everyone is happy to take questions based on their experience with the network, and Carol was very happy today to kickstart us off. So I will be addressing the first question to you, Carol. How do you feel like the network has benefited you, or what do you feel like the network has given you?
The network has given me a new lease of life, confidence, mostly because I nursed my husband through lung cancer, and after his death, there was no help or support apart from medication, and I did struggle mentally. I muddled through for quite a while, but eventually, by chance, I came across a leaflet with Let's Connect on it. I came along and joined. I've met new people. It's opened up a whole new world to me. I cannot thank them enough because I really was struggling on my own. I was literally isolated. These guys are tremendous. You can just talk. You don't have to talk. You laugh. I've met new people. I've made new friends, and it really, truly is a godsend. And I don't know how I managed without them.
Thank you so much, Carol. Anyone else from the members wanting to share a bit about their experience?
Yes.
Yeah, let's turn this around.
Yes, I just wanted to say that Sally's quite right about prevention. It is difficult to measure, but it's really good. And this service is preventive mental health medicine in action. That's what it is, and it really works. It really works for me. They put me in touch with other voluntary services, a charity called Sport in Mind, who are encouraging me to exercise, which is good for mental health. And also I'm going to be getting some counselling with talking therapies, which I've been waiting for 10 years. So it's been a marvellous service for me, and I entirely came across it by accident. We joked that I was kidnapped because I came along and I said, Sally said to me, "Have you been before?" And I said, "No, I haven't." And as I said, "Yes, I have," because I had been to biscuit factory before. And she said that I'm getting confused anyway, but basically I came across it by accident, and the communication needs to be better, because when I went for my mental health review, the nurse doing my mental health review at surgery, my GP surgery, had not heard of Let's Connect. So the communication needs to be better in that.
Thank you so much. Who else would like to say something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I discovered this group about 6 months ago. I was diagnosed with complex PTSD, and when I finished my therapy, which I was in for over 2 years, I was just left to my own devices. And you can get really low, and I really struggled. But then I found this group and come along every week, and I've built my confidence like tremendously. And I've met new friends, and Joanna and Sally, they're just great. And if I need to do within this service to find other things to do to keep me my well-being, it's easy to use, and everyone's just so friendly. And that's all I think I can say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anything you'd like to say, Kevin? Very good. Happy to open this up to anyone if they have any questions for the panel. Let me check quickly the Q&A section as well, just in case anyone has popped something in the chat. I don't think I can see anything. So if there are no further questions, then can we go to the next slide, please? That was it. We have all of our contact information down, so we're happy to be contacted either via email or via phone line. A big thank you to everyone who listened today, and a very big thank you to all of our members for coming today. And that was it from us. Thank you so much.
Okay. I think we'll move on. I think we'll now thank you for that very much for Let's Connect Wellbeing Network, Sally. We'll move on to building language in Berkshire now, so I'll hand over to Helen.
Great. Hello. We are from the Early Years Speech and Language Therapy team. My name's Helen Wilson. I'm the Early Years Speech and Language Therapy Operational Lead in the East of Berkshire, and joining me is my colleague, Caroline.
Hello, my name is Caroline Pethick. I'm the Early Years Operational Lead for Speech and Language Therapy in the West. And today we're going to be sharing with you the journey behind our online early communication development workshops. This presentation today will focus on why the workshops were created, the impact these have had so far on our service users, and also our learning. We have the next slide, please, and I'm going to pass over to Helen.
So before we get into why the workshops were set up, it's good to have an understanding of why we thought they were needed in the first place. So for a long time, the speech and language therapy team have been facing the difficulty of demands outstripping capacity. We often come up across the expectation that the speech and language therapists are the only people that will be able to support children and young people with speech, language and communication needs. There is also a widespread expectation that speech and language therapy means that a therapist has to work one-to-one with the child. And whilst there is a small cohort of children who will benefit from one-to-one therapy, most children can be supported by a graduated response, which makes the best use of our resources. It's also important to note that there is an ongoing national shortage of speech and language therapists, which has been recognised by the Royal College of Speech and Language Therapists. These factors have inevitably led to sort of increased demands for our service, whilst our capacity has remained the same. We have had a large number of referrals due to families and professionals not feeling confident to support children and young people with simple strategies. We've also had feedback from our own speech and language therapists and speech and language therapy assistants that they're often repeating the same information to many families and settings. And this has kind of raised some concerns about how impactful our contact time has been. And we've also had feedback that finding advice on our website has been quite difficult at times. Like all health services, we've also been impacted by the pandemic. This has led to a sort of a backlog in children waiting to be seen by the team. And the team's links with key partners, such as our colleagues in health visiting, the children's centres and family hubs and local authorities, has been harder to maintain, and our communication with them had become less frequent. Next slide, please.
So when planning our workshops, we had a few aims, and those were to increase the confidence of those closest to the child so that they can naturally support the children's language development throughout the day, to make information more accessible to families or anyone who wants to find out more about supporting language development. So that doesn't just have to be families, it could be healthcare professionals, or it could be early years settings workers, local authority workers, those kind of people. We also had an aim to improve relationships with key partners by rebuilding their confidence about the speech and language support available. And we also wanted to provide access to help that doesn't require a referral, as this often involves time and effort from both sides and can be an inefficient use of resources. And we wanted to promote that communication really is everyone's business, and that simple strategies used throughout the day with a child can be really, really impactful on their communication skills. Next slide, please. So within Children and Young People's Integrated Therapies, CIPIT, we utilise a care aims approach, which was created by Kate Malcolm-S. We're really driven by the impact, exploring the need and the individual context of the child when making clinical decisions and working with a family or professional. This links really nicely to the circles of support and influence you can see here. If you look at the circles of support, you can see that it's actually based on proximity. So this means we're looking at who is closest to the child, as they will know the child best and they spend the most time with them. What the model identifies is that those closest to the child will be able to make the most change, as these are the people who have the most influence on the child. For the workshops, we were planning to speak to those closer to the child that needs help with their communication. We'd be talking through a range of advice and strategies that could be implemented into the child's daily routine. Sometimes these strategies may help the child to develop in their skills, and sometimes it may be environmental changes, which will help the child to function more successfully with the skills they already have. At its core, it's more successful if these changes are implemented by those closest to the child. These are the adults that the child is familiar with. They will know the child best and be able to identify times when that child is most open to learning. So especially for your preschoolers, you know that actually they might not be able to do anything for you until they've had their snack or their nap, as the case may be. Strategies will have much more of an impact when they're used daily rather than practicing just once a week or every other week or once a term with someone they don't know very well. We introduce all of our workshops using this slide to help those closest to the child to really understand how important they are in the development of their child's communication skills. Next slide, please. So once Helen and I had created the workshops, we wanted to ensure that they were accessible to all at all times. As we planned to interact with the public without an open referral, we needed to ensure that information was gathered in a safe way and that our processes kept the public and the service safe all the time. For this, we needed a few things. We needed a data privacy impact assessment signed off by the Information and Governance team, a very important piece of paper. For the DPIA to be completed, we had input from the Information Governance team, the Information Security team, the Clinical Governance team, the Safeguarding team, and our CIPIC colleagues. We're incredibly grateful for all the support we received from all those people. We wrote a standard operating procedure to make sure that we were consistent in our processes and just to keep us safe and successful. And we had liaison also with Marcoms, the communications team, and they were essential in helping us to format our presentations, setting up links on the website so our workshops were as accessible as possible, and promoting these workshops so that people actually knew about them. And we did that through flyers and business cards and posters and social media posts and things like that. All of this obviously took a bit of a time. We worked from October 22 to March 23, and we were finally able to go live at that point. Next slide, please.
So families, settings and healthcare professionals are all able to access the workshops without a referral by visiting our website. If you click again, it should start the video. On the speech and language therapy page, you can browse the training sessions, signing up for the one that you feel best suits what your child needs. And when signing up, a small amount of non-patient identifiable data is taken from the attendee. So we find out which locality in Berkshire they're from, the age of the child, and the role of the adult, whether they're the parent or an early years setting professional or a local authority member of staff, and how they heard about the workshops in the first place. We are then able to use all of this information for sort of our data analysis. Next slide, please.
So currently we have 3 universal online workshops that run every month for anyone who wants to attend. We went with a building theme when we were titling these workshops. So we have firstly Communication Foundations, and Communication Foundations focuses on skills, on strategies for children who might struggle to pay attention with others. They might pay fleeting attention to the adult around them or their toys. They might struggle to use words at all. We've also got communication building blocks, and that's really our most popular workshop, and it should be because it's really the bread and butter of what we do. It's aimed to support children who have limited number of words or only use short phrases. And we also have scaffolding communication, and that's recommended. It's recommended that people who attend scaffolding also attend one of our other workshops because it's meant to be used alongside. And this is to help those around the child to use gestures, objects and pictures and symbols to support children in their communication. The themes of these workshops were influenced by feedback from our clinicians, and they also link to the key communication strategies to support language learning outlined in the Best Start in Speech, Language and Communication Supporting Evidence paper from the Department for Education 2020. And yeah, those are the 3 we have had running so far, and they've been quite popular. Next slide, please.
So, as you saw, the workshops are accessed via the Children, Young People's and Families website at the moment. And Marcoms, the communications team, have fed back to us that the speech and language therapy page is now the 3rd most popular page on the website with over 7,000 views. We've also have the 2nd highest number of people who come straight to our page on the website. So this indicates that people are either following a link, maybe from one of our flyers, or have bookmarked our page. It's also been noted that people are staying on our page for an average of 50 seconds. And while this doesn't sound like a lot, it's a higher number in comparison to other pages, and it indicates that people are engaging with the content and not just leaving straight away. Since going live in March 2023, Caroline and I have been able to collect data from the workshops themselves on the number of views, registrations and attendees for each one. So in the first 6 months, we've had over 8,000 views, over 800 register, and then 443 attend our workshops. What we have noticed is there a pattern that of those that register, usually 50 to 60% will attend on the day. The exposure and awareness of the early years speech and language therapy service and our workshops is continuing to grow, and the fact that one of our posts gained over 7,000 impressions on social media means that more and more people are going to be seeing content about our service, which is just great. Next slide, please.
So at the end of the workshop, we have a Microsoft feedback form that we send out to attendees. And after the workshop, 94% of attendees rated their knowledge as good or excellent in comparison to 51% prior to the workshop. So we're really pleased about that. We've had a few comments that people choose to leave us as well. So some parents have said things like good content and well presented. The content is very informative and the conveners have positive energy and delivered well. Thank you. Next slide, please.
Attendees have been a mixture of families and professionals, and these are some comments that we've had from professionals that range from health visitors to nursery staff to local authority staff. So they sort of shared that they found it very useful with lots of practical strategies, and they'd be recommending the workshops to a parent to attend. They feel they'd find it useful. Also some reassurance that good to hear that they were on the right track when supporting families if they've got questions on communication development, and that actually the workshops were extremely informative and easy to follow. And what's really positive for us is they're planning on relaying that information to the rest of their team and also encouraging parents to attend too. Next slide, please.
So I think this is our favourite piece of feedback so far. It's from a parent and it demonstrates that we are realising our aims for the workshops. This parent said, very helpful watch and listen to, lots of great advice. I was on the verge of contacting the GP or speech therapist because I was quite worried, but the workshop was very reassuring. I think it needs to be emphasised throughout that patience and consistency is key with these techniques, and you don't have to rush to a health service at the first instance, and then it needs to be done for at least 3 months. I've come out far more informed than before. Thank you. So we're really pleased that this parent has obviously gained some useful information and hopefully gained some confidence as well to try some strategies at home with their young one. Next slide, please.
So as with all projects, there have been a few challenges. So these include sort of the time and paperwork required to ensure safety in our training. This has been a challenge, but necessary to ensure the safety of attendees and to maximise the use of the workshops. Gathering feedback consistently has been a real challenge. Attendees are often really reluctant to fill in feedback forms, but from the questions that have been asked during the workshops and the feedback that has been received, we have been able to add additional information to the workshop slides to answer some common questions that were coming up. So we've added some more information about English as an additional language and about screen time to the workshops, but we've also been able to change aspects of the delivery style. As one of our biggest challenges was finding out that our unique selling point, having a live question and answer function with 2 speech and language therapists, wasn't always accessible to all of those attending the workshops. So we've now had this resolved. We're able to turn people's microphones on at the end of the session so they can still ask their questions to us, and feedback following that adjustment has been much more positive. Another challenge has been the constant publicising required. The Marcoms and social media teams have been really fundamental to this. We now have flyers and business cards which are distributed to our partners and will continue to do. Another factor has been ensuring that slides are accessible without taking data from attendees. We had a lot of feedback at the start that attendees really wanted access to the slides after the workshop, but we had to think about how we could share that information safely with them while not holding on to their data. This has been achieved through the use of some secret links on the website, so we're able to, when attendees fill in our feedback form, they will get a thank you and a link to the slides, which we're also hoping will lead to a greater number of attendees providing feedback too. Thank you. Next slide.
So moving forward, we've created general DPIA, so the impact assessment I was speaking of earlier, for universal training use so that other services are able to set up workshops without delay in similar formats. The occupational therapy teams and the mainstream school speech and language therapy teams are now offering training packages using this same method. the planning for this has been relatively quick for them as a result. Helen and I have been running the workshops thus far, just whilst we iron out any kind of teething issues, that kind of thing. But we're now training up more therapists to help deliver these across the team. And we're going to add a fourth workshop to the menu, an introduction to autism and communication. And this has been developed in partnership with the complex needs speech and language therapy team in both East and West Berkshire. Targeted workshops are also in development. Whilst we've been able to use this innovation for those who do not have a referral, we are looking to use this method to streamline services for children and families with open referrals also. So watch this space for those. And we are also working towards greater inclusivity in the workshop delivery. We are currently looking into getting a script together and having this translated into popular local languages to ensure equal access to attendees. Next slide, please.
And finally, we took our workshops on the road. We're really aware that some of our service users experience digital poverty and have been encouraging early years settings and family hubs to stream our workshops for families. But in September, we also thought we'd use the health bus to bring workshops live to different localities across Berkshire. It's been a hybrid delivery, so we've been streaming the workshops live for those attending online, but also being available for those that wanted to attend in person on the bus. It was a great success. We ran the three workshops in September on the bus, and it also helped us to promote future workshops too. Moving forward, we're hoping to get out on the health bus again in November to the other 3 localities. Next slide, please.
So thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, or our contact details are on the screen. Many thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much, Helen and Caroline, to you and to the Let's Connect Wellbeing Network. 2 really brilliant service presentations, really highlighting positive impact we're having for people and working with those impacted to develop the services together. So thanks very much. We have 1 question so far specifically on the Let's Connect Wellbeing Network, which I'll ask to Sally. And then there's another question on the CAM service more in general. If you have any other questions on the service presentations or on Julian and Martin's opening presentations, please do use the Q&A functionality icon where you can submit and post a question. We'll ask that live. So firstly, thanks to Jenny. The Let's Connect Wellbeing Network is a fabulous service which I'm sure is highly valued and makes a big difference to people. Does it work alongside or with primary care social prescribers, in brackets community connectors? Sally, you were able to pick that up?
Yeah, so in our intention, and in an ideal world, we'd be very well embedded with GP surgeries and social prescribers. Actually, you know, just doing that in the development phase has been a bit slow to sort of get that embedded, but absolutely that's part of the core model, and it's building, and we're building relationships with social prescribers across all GP surgeries, and all similar work as well, like community connectors. And it's really important to us that we work in a very kind of integrated way with all those roles. Some of them sit within the some of the roles I've mentioned sit within BHFT, and some sit within GP surgeries. So we've done a lot of groundwork from that, and we've probably learned quite a lot of shortcut ways to do that going forward across the rest of Berkshire as well. But yeah, really crucial social prescribers.
Thank you, Sally. And I'm going to ask Tamina Ajmal, our Chief Operating Officer, to respond to this question from Tony Lloyd. Thank you, Tony. For many years, the CAM service, so this is our Children's Mental Health Services in Wokingham area, has been subject to criticism. Is there any prospect of an improvement in service provision? There's quite a general view of the CAM service there, of which there are many different pathways and specialities. So over to you, Tamina.
Thank you, and thank you very much, Tony, for raising. We do include a range of activities within our child, adolescent and mental health services. So as an example, we offer urgent and crisis support for young people who need support very quickly and very urgently in and out of hours. We have something called our Phoenix team, which provides support in the community for young people who've got quite complex and a range of complex needs, with a view really to preventing the need for an admission into an inpatient unit, a service we're very proud of, and actually other partner providers have been asking for some information because they're keen to set up some similar arrangement for themselves. And then we have something called our Thrive model, which has got 4 components to it. It's offering advice, getting help, getting more help, and then getting risk support. And it offers a range of interventions and support depending on the complexity or severity of need of the young person. Now in Wokingham, we are commissioned by Woking Borough Council to provide getting help, and they have recently recommissioned us, and they've allowed us to provide even more support into that level of the service that we provide, which is extremely good news. And then our integrated care boards, which commission some of our other children's services, are developing additional support for young people. So they have a new service across the whole of the Thames Valley, supporting children with complex needs. We're also internally implementing some new pathways, because we recognise some children are being supported by more than one team, and that can be quite challenging to coordinate. So it's a very important piece of work for us, that we make it very easy for children and their families to be supported across multiple teams. And then finally, in terms of our ADHD and autism assessment services, we have put a significant amount of work into those services to reduce the length of time that people are waiting for an assessment. And what we're trying to do in the meantime is give people really good access to information, advice, support and guidance, so that they can start to identify some strategies and support tools for themselves while they're waiting for a formal diagnosis. So I think, as Alex said, it's a really sort of big range of services we provide. I'm really happy, Tony, if you want to pick up with me offline if there are any specific concerns or issues that you'd like to have a bit more information on. But I hope that gives you an overview of some of the work that we're trying to achieve within Wokingham, but also across the wider Berkshire.
Thank you, Tamina. I think we've got time for one more question, and David Gregory has posed this one. And Minu, I just want to prime you, Dr. Mina Irani, our medical director, and I think is online with us. So what is your view of more volunteers in community services? This is in light of the debate about physician associates in the media at the moment. Minu, are you happy to have a go at that one? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, David. There's absolutely no doubt that volunteers play a very important role in all community services, including health services. Now, I won't go into the debate about physician associates in the media, because that is a media debate and different professional groups. All I can say is that Berkshire Healthcare train physician associates who come from Reading University for placements and training in mental health and physical health in our trust. And they are very valuable members of our teams, and we would always welcome them as future employees in Berkshire Healthcare. I hope that gives you the assurance that we do value all professional groups and volunteers in the organisation.
Thank you, Minu. With 2 minutes to go, I'm going to hand back to our chair, Martin Earwicker. Martin.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Alex, for managing that. Thank you for the questions. I've just got a few concluding remarks. First of all, thanks to everyone who's joined us for this AGM. And if you want to find out more about the Trust, please go to our website and you can see all the information about membership and governors, but you can also watch our board meetings, recording to those, and read all our board papers, so you can learn more about the Trust and its services. Thanks to the presenters and those taking part today. And can I add my personal thanks to all the staff of the Trust for a fantastic year under quite difficult circumstances. So they deserve, I think, all our thanks and credit. So with that, I'll say goodbye and look forward to seeing you next year, if not before.